talking about knee collapse during locomotion. All right, so again, we need to have sort of a theoretical ideal as a reference point, and that ideal, in this case, again, should not be just everything is perfectly straight all the time, okay? Humans are not robots, all right? Now, in the sports performance world, we tend to look at things from the side view. We look at a lot of like flexion and extension patterns, right, for sprinting. We tend to too often ignore a front view or a back view where we're looking at the rotational sequences that are happening, okay? So that's what we're looking at today. All right, the first piece of the theoretical ideal model that we're gonna look at is contacting on the outside edge of the foot, okay? So the foot is gonna touch down in a position like this. Now this is observable from beginners to elite sprinters, okay? Just about everybody does this naturally. The only people I have seen who don't do this are heel strikers. Now, like I mentioned in the last video, we want your knee to line up with where the pressure is on your foot. So if we are contacting and loading on the outside edge of the foot, then the knee in our theoretical model should be lined up with the outside of the foot. Okay, so that means your shin and your thigh are going to be in a little bit of external rotation so that your knee is lining up with where you're loading on your foot. So our theoretical model is not just everything is straight in the leg, okay? We are outside of the foot, a little bit of external rotation in the shin and the thigh. Along with that, we are not perfectly straight in the torso either, okay? You should see some rotation, some lateral flexion. You're gonna see that same side shoulder dip down while we're loading that outside of the foot, okay? Again, we are not robots. Okay, so we land on the outside of the foot, but then it's gonna roll in, it's gonna flatten out to more of a neutral position, okay? Or maybe even a little bit of pronation. I think we can allow that within our theoretical ideal, a small amount of pronation. Okay, so the foot kind of rolls in. Now your knee should follow the foot pressure, right? So your knee started an external rotation. As your foot goes to a neutral position, your knee is gonna follow, so your shin and your thigh are gonna slightly internally rotate to a neutral position so that you're starting out like this, but by the time you're toeing off, things should be pretty neutral, okay? So we have some internal rotation happening during your foot contact. And this is during upright sprinting, okay? I want to be clear about that. So in this model, we have a straight or slightly turned out foot. The foot will go to neutral, maybe pronate a little bit, and then there's going to be no knee collapsing, okay? Again, this is a theoretical ideal. What we don't want, like I pointed out last video, is the foot's turning out, but the thigh is rotating in, and now the shin is kind of bridging the gap between those two, all right? So then we have your foot pronating more dramatically and your knee collapsing in, okay? Now, I want to be clear, you can be extremely fast with these, not ideal mechanics, all right? Tyson Gay shows these in this clip, and this is when he's running a 9.71, okay? And his right leg is demonstrating these mechanics, all right? So you can definitely be really, really fast, okay? But what we would say is that this is not biomechanically ideal when it comes to health. These kind of mechanics, may be more likely to produce shin splints, probably more likely to wear down some certain structures over time. And then again, like I mentioned last video, these type of mechanics show up in ACL tears as well. So you are not going to tear your ACL during a linear sprint, all right? Unless maybe if you have to unexpectedly decelerate really fast, okay? But if you have these type of mechanics in your gait, you're walking, you're jogging, you're sprinting, and you play a multi-directional sport, then I think we can say with a fair amount of confidence that your ACL injury risk is increased. So what if you want to make some changes to the rotational sequence in your locomotion? I don't want to offer like a universal solution, but here's some ideas. One, change your walking habits, right? Point your feet straight, put your knee towards the outside of your foot, and try to walk like this rather than like this all the time, okay? And then put that pattern into some jogging, Maybe put it into some speed drills as well, okay? And try to progressively build that pattern into your sprinting. Another thing is build stability in your strength exercises, particularly your knee bending strength exercises, right? So if you can stay lined up in a lunge or a squat, you have the stability to do that. That's gonna help you stay a little more stable when you're sprinting, okay? And maybe you don't just do straight foot, straight knee. Maybe you emphasize a little arch out and knee wide even, okay? You're probably not gonna do like heavy weights like this, but you might be able to practice this with lighter weights. And maybe you can come up with some other supplementary exercises to help this process, okay? Be a problem solver. So we have this theoretical ideal where the foot is, on the outside edge or it's neutral, and then the shin and the thigh are a little bit externally rotated or neutral, and we don't have this collapsing in of the foot and knee, okay? Now, I do prefer to see something like that in an athlete's linear sprinting, linear deceleration, or if they're doing any like straightforward landings, okay? However, I don't want to make any extreme claims like everyone is capable of mastering this perfectly, or everybody should master this perfectly, or this is guaranteed to make you faster if you can master it, or if you master it, you're guaranteed not to have a traumatic knee injury. All right, I will not make any extreme claims. However, I will say that we should not just completely ignore the rotational sequence that happens in locomotion. Okay, we should be aware of it, we should examine it, and maybe in some cases we should intervene and try to make changes.